Good day, our dear viewers and listeners. Welcome to another episode full of learning and fun only here at Salida, TeleRadyo. I am your teacher host, Teacher Karen Grace A. Dabuco from La Filipina National High School. We are in La Filipina National High School official Facebook page and simultaneous broadcast with our partner radio station 98.3 Gold FM. Kuyawa no? Today, we will learn together exciting topic in English 7. Are you ready? Let us now give the floor to our teacher, Teacher Melky de la Serna, your teacher broadcaster for today.
Thank you, Ma'am Karen. A pleasant day, viewers and listeners. Welcome to our episode this afternoon. Despite the pandemic, we are glad that we are still able to deliver to you our lessons through our Salida TeleRadyo. Today, you will be learning the conflicts in literary text and hear tips on how to resolve conflicts in a non-violent way. Let us know our lesson objectives. The first one is discover the conflicts presented in literary selections. Second, resolve conflicts in non-violent ways. Talking about conflict, in literature, a conflict is a literary device characterized by a struggle between two opposing forces. My dear learners and viewers, conflicts or what we call problems may arise anywhere. We experience conflicts on a daily basis, and it can be minor. A disagreement with a friend where to have lunch, or major. It could be countries at war. Since people have different points of view in life, opposing ideas can happen. But it does not have to be always done in a drastic way. Resolutions to conflicts can be done in a more subtle way to avoid violence. To start with, ready your module, pen and paper, and answer this pre-test. Listen to the short story and answer the questions that follow. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Heroes of the Bible, Jonah. This is Jonah. Jonah was a prophet. That means it was his job to tell people what God told him to say.
Yep.
One day, God told Jonah to go to Nineveh because the people of Nineveh were doing bad things. But instead, Jonah ran away.
Where are you, please?
And went to the port to board a ship, going the other way. He was hoping to get away from God. He sailed for a place called Tarshish. While he was at sea, God sent a great and powerful wind over the sea that caused a storm that seemed like it would break the ship apart. Fearing for their lives, the sailors tried everything they could think of to save the ship. Meanwhile, Jonah was sound asleep, so the captain went down and said, "How can you sleep at a time like this? Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will help us." Then the crew figured out that Jonah was the reason for the storm, and they asked him, "Who are you? Why is this happening to us?" Jonah told them who he was and that he worshipped the one true God who made the sea. Then he told the sailors to throw him in the sea so the storm would stop.
No, why?
The sailors still tried to escape the storm, but it was no use. So they asked God for forgiveness and threw Jonah into the sea. The storm stopped at once.
Whoa!
The sailors were amazed at God's power and they vowed to serve him. Now God sent a great fish to swallow Jonah.
Great.
And Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and nights. Jonah prayed to God from inside the fish, and God ordered the fish to spit Jonah out.
Ugh, yuck.
God told Jonah again to go to the city of Nineveh to tell them what God had said about them.
I get it.
This time, Jonah obeyed God and went to Nineveh to deliver God's message. The people of Nineveh stopped doing bad things and turned to God. They were saved because they listened to the message that God had given Jonah.
Now, here's the questions. Number 1. Who are the characters in the story? A. 3 kings. B. David and Goliath. C. Seafarers and the fish. Or D. Jonah and the whale. The correct answer is Jonah and the whale. Letter D. Number 2. Why did God send strong and powerful wind to the sea where Jonah is sailing? A. Because Jonah is a sinner. B. Because Jonah disobeyed his orders. C. Because there is a low pressure area. Or D. Because the sailors were treating Jonah badly. The answer is letter B, because Jonah disobeyed his orders. Number 3. What happened to Jonah after being thrown into the sea? A. He swam away. B. He was drowned. C. He was eaten by a shark. Or letter D. He was swallowed by a big fish. If your answer is letter D, you are correct. He was swallowed by a fish. A big fish. Number 4. In the beginning of the story of Jonah and the whale, what does God ask Jonah to do? A. Go to Israel. B. Go to Jordan. C. Go to Nineveh. Or D. Get on a ship. If you answered letter C, you are correct. Go to Nineveh. Number 5. What is the lesson in the story? A. Be generous. B. Be thankful to everyone. C. Good deeds are rewarded. Or D. There is no point in striving to achieve something that isn't God's will. If your answer is letter B, you are correct. How's your score? I hope you got a perfect score in this activity. If not, I know you can do well next time. So listeners and viewers, remember that a good story requires conflict and a resolution. Conflict in a story is a struggle between two opposing forces. Characters must act to confront those forces, and there is where conflict is born. If there is nothing to overcome, well, there is no story. Conflict in a story creates and drives the plot forward. On the other hand, the resolution is the part of the plot in which the conflict is solved. While the solution does not always result in a happy ending, an effective resolution will offer some closure for the reader. Now, let's try if you have gained the knowledge about the difference between conflict and resolution. I will show you some story excerpt from the varied stories of Philippine literature, and you are going to write your answer on your paper. So you're going to determine whether each statement is a conflict or a resolution. Are you ready? Let's start. Number 1. While Prince Batugan was gone, the evil king plotted against the good prince. Is it a conflict or a resolution? If your answer is conflict, you are correct. Number 2. The sun god shut her daughter Luna in the garden. The sea god imprisoned his son Mar in one of his sea caves. The answer is resolution. Number 3. The father of Marine did not wish to sacrifice more lives after that disaster. He gave her daughter Marine the freedom to choose her husband. The answer is resolution. Now that you can already identify which is conflict and resolution, let us continue with our discussion with the types of conflict. Conflicts in literature consist of internal and external conflicts. The internal conflict is one which exists inside the character and must be resolved by the character alone, while external conflict deals with the problems of the world. Internal conflict is always within the character or the protagonist itself. Since conflict is defined as a struggle between opposing forces, we can say that a character is dealing with any form of internal conflict. Since conflict is defined as a struggle between opposing forces, we can say that a character dealing with any form of internal conflict is torn between two options which may weigh the same but have completely different outcomes. External conflict is a struggle that takes place between the main character and some outside force. Therefore, it is outside the body of the protagonist. Usually, it occurs when the protagonist struggles against the antagonist, a character that opposes the protagonist in the main body of the story. Other types of external conflict could also arise due to some other factors such as the forces of nature and society in which the protagonist lives. Let me show you a perfect example of the two. As you observe on the first picture, the man is having decision making. Which among the two will he choose to listen? The good or the bad? In this illustration, no one is involved in the problem but himself. Therefore, this example is an internal conflict. On the other hand, the other picture shows a man is having trouble with others and not to himself. Thus, it reveals to be an external conflict. There are 5 main types of literary conflict. We have man versus self, which is an internal conflict. Man versus man, which belongs to the external conflict. Man versus nature, and man versus society. And the last one is man versus technology. The first type of conflict is character versus self conflict, or also called as man versus self. It is a type of conflict that takes place inside a character's mind. Man versus self literary conflict usually involves the main character's inner struggle with self-doubts, a moral dilemma, or their own nature. Example: Alona caught her friend Ella stealing from a classmate. Now, Alona must choose between keeping her friendship with Ella and doing the right thing. Next type of conflict is man versus man. This is probably the most common form of external conflict and is also known as interpersonal conflict. This mode lies at the heart of all dramatic arts and places the struggle directly between the protagonist and the antagonist, otherwise known as the good guy and the bad guy. In a man versus man conflict, the protagonist wants something, and the antagonist obstructs the protagonist from getting what he wants. An example of this conflict is a mother and son disagree about what course the son would take in college. Next type of conflict is the man versus nature. This puts the main character against the forces of nature in the form of a natural disaster or a similarly dangerous situation, and is often associated with literary naturalism, which hinges on the idea that nature is indifferent to humanity. An example of this is a family is stranded in a big flood. Next type is man versus society. This mode of external conflict occurs when the protagonist is placed at odds with a government or cultural tradition. This type of conflict applies to societal norms as well. For example, if a child gets trouble with his parents for sneaking out of the house at night, he is in conflict with the societal norms or tradition that children are exposed or expected to obey their parents. Another example is a teenager breaks the health standard protocols by insisting to enter in a shopping mall. We have the fifth type of conflict, the man versus technology, or we also call this one as man versus machine. So it can mean that a person is in direct combat with robots or machines. In the context of science fiction, or it could mean simply that technology stands in the way of the protagonist getting what she wants. In the science fiction version, the same attributes of a man versus man conflict apply. However, if a person struggles to keep a job that a new machine can do better, the physical struggle is against the machine, but the emotional struggle is against the society that breeds the technology. We have here an example. A child can stop playing video games long enough to do his homework. Now that you know the type of conflicts, learning how to handle disputes efficiently is necessary. Therefore, one must learn how to be able to find resolution to conflicts in a non-threatening way. I will give you some tips how to do that. The following can also be considered in solving conflicts. We have the first one, the capacity to empathize with other person's point of view. Second, calm, non-defensive and respectful reaction. Third, readiness to forgive and forget, and to move past the conflict without holding resentments or anger. Fourth, the ability to seek compromise and avoid punishing. And fifth, a belief that facing conflict head-on is the best thing for both sides. Now, we have here another activity. So you're going to read the situation carefully. Determine the protagonist or the central character and antagonist or the opposing force. And then describe the type of conflict, whether it is man versus man, man versus self, and the like. Number 1. After breaking her mother's favorite vase, Cassie struggles to decide whether she should tell her mother the truth or attempt to hide her mistakes and blame the family goat. Who do you think is the protagonist and the antagonist? And what type of conflict is this? Very good. The protagonist and antagonist is Cassie. We have the same character, therefore, the type of conflict that we have here is man versus self. Number 2. Johnny is on a whitewater rafting trip along a choppy river when their guide suddenly has a heart attack. Now, she and the other passengers must learn to work together to survive the treacherous rapids. As if things weren't bad enough, some of the passengers have spotted a bear following the confused rafters along the shore. Will Johnny make it home safely? Who do you think is the protagonist and the antagonist? What type of conflict is it? If your answer for the protagonist is Johnny, you are correct. And the antagonist for this situation is the nature. The type of conflict, therefore, is man versus nature. This time, you are going to answer the following passages showing conflict. Identify what type of conflict is shown, but this time, you will provide suggested resolution. Answers in this activity may vary. You will be given 10 seconds to answer each item. Number 1. Susie is new student at school. She is nervous to walk into the classroom because she doesn't know anyone. When she walks into the room, Susie notices that there are no seats at the table. She starts to shake and begins to cry. What type of conflict do you think it is, and what suggested resolution can you give? Time is up. The type of conflict is man versus self. And the possible answer for the suggested resolution could be friendly and make friends. Number 2. You are eating at a friend's house and the mom piles your plate full of food. It looks really good and you want to eat it, but you can't because you just ate a snack. What type of conflict do you think the situation is? And what resolution can you suggest? Your time starts now. Time is up. The answer is man versus self. And the possible resolution for this is eat a little to show courtesy to your friend's family. Number 3. Kylie is a new student that just moved to your school. You hear her ask another classmate, "Can I sit with you at lunch?" classmate answers, "No way." What type of conflict is this situation? And what resolution can you suggest? The time starts now. Time is up. The answer is man versus man. And the solution could be react in a positive way. Smile and find another seat. If you got a perfect score, very well. Now let's proceed to the assignment. For your assignment, select one conflict you have experienced at home or community right now. Suggest ways how to resolve it in a non-violent way through the use of graphic organizer. So you will be rated through this rubric. You will be given 3 points if the content contains substantial, specific, and or illustrative content demonstrating strong and sophisticated ideas. For the grammar, you will be given 2 points for few errors in punctuation, capitalization, and spelling. 2 points will be given if in the content you have limited content with inadequate elaboration or explanation. And for grammar, you will be given 1 point if you have more than 5 punctuation, capitalization, and spelling errors. Another assignment is to practice your reading skills by reading the story Ibong Adarna in your self-learning module, Quarter 4, Module 6, and also answer the activities that follow. This can be found at page 7 of your Quarter 4, Module 6, Self-Learning Module. There you go, our dear viewers and listeners. We are done with our learning journey for this afternoon. Just remember, conflict and resolution are essential components to a short fictional story. And in reality, we encounter several problems in life. And our task is to find the perfect solution to that problem. As people always say, there is always a solution to every problem. And this is your teacher broadcaster for today, Teacher Melky C. de la Serna.
Thank you so much, Teacher Melky, for your discussion on conflicts in literary texts of grade 7 English. I hope you learned something today. Again, this is your teacher host, Teacher Karen, saying thank you and have a good day.